They did not walk away because you did not care enough. They stepped back because your care landed on them like heat they did not know how to hold. That is the part most people never see. They do not always run from coldness. Sometimes they run from intensity, even gentle intensity, because to them it still feels like pressure. And if you have been trying to decode that silence, trying to understand why the more sincere you were, the more distant they became, stay with me, because this changes the whole frame. There are a few rare qualities that reach a person like this, and almost nobody carries them in a real way. Not as a trick, not as a performance, as a way of being. And that difference matters, because the moment you try to use these like moves, the energy changes and they feel it, fast. So before anything else, ask yourself one hard question. Are you trying to win them back, or are you becoming someone who no longer needs to chase what does not meet you halfway? That question cuts deeper than any dating advice, because the truth is simple. What reaches a guarded person is not more effort. It is a different kind of presence. Lighter, stronger, less hungry. And once you understand that, the whole dynamic starts to look very different. The first quality is calm emotional presence. And no, that does not mean becoming quiet, numb, or fake peaceful while chaos burns inside you. It means your feelings are real, but they do not spill out as urgency, pressure, or demand. Around a person who fears closeness, this is rare. Most people come near them carrying invisible weight. The need for answers, the need for reassurance, the need for quick clarity. Even when nothing harsh is said, that need can still be felt, and to someone already on guard, it feels like a hand reaching for control. Calm presence removes that weight. It says, without saying it, I am here, but I am not here to corner you. I am not here to force a moment, fix a feeling, or lock in a result. That takes real inner steadiness, because when they pull back, your instinct may be to close the gap. When they go quiet, your mind may race to fill in the silence. But calm presence stays centered. It does not panic. It does not chase. It does not turn one shift in energy into a full emotional emergency, and that matters more than people realize. Because a guarded person often reads energy before words. They can feel hidden urgency, even when the language sounds soft. They notice when your kindness carries fear underneath it. They notice when your patience is actually waiting, and that is where the whole thing starts to tighten. When your energy stays steady, something powerful happens. Their inner turbulence becomes easier for them to feel because you are no longer absorbing it for them or reacting to it on command. Your calm becomes a mirror, not a cold mirror, a clear one. They start to sense their own pattern without you needing to explain it, label it, or confront it in real time. And that creates something unfamiliar for them, safety without obligation. They are no longer bracing for the moment your care turns into pressure. They are no longer preparing an exit because the emotional room suddenly feels too small. Instead, they begin to study the difference in you. Why does this feel lighter? Why does this not feel like a trap? Why am I not being asked to perform closeness right now? This is where many people make a mistake. They think calm means passive. It does not. Calm can be deeply alive. It can be warm, attentive, and fully present. The difference is that it is not leaning, it does not grip, it does not silently say, please prove this means something. And if you can hold that kind of grounded energy for real, not for a day, not for one perfect conversation, but over time, it becomes unforgettable. Because in a world where most connections feel like emotional negotiation, a calm person feels almost unreal. And if this is hitting home, keep listening, because the next quality is where the pressure drops even more. The second quality is self-contained independence. Not distance, not pretending you do not care, not acting hard to get. Real independence is quieter than that. It is an internal sense that your center does not depend on another person staying close. You enjoy them, but you do not collapse without them. You value the connection, but your life does not stop moving when they go silent. This becomes deeply disarming to a guarded person because it removes the future they are always afraid is coming. The future where closeness slowly turns into expectation, where one good week becomes emotional debt, where connection becomes a contract they never agreed to sign. Most people, without noticing, begin to lean. They want more time, more certainty, more access, more proof. And while that longing is human, to someone who fears being needed too much, it can feel like the beginning of a burden. Self-contained independence breaks that pattern. You stay open, but your openness is not a request for rescue. You share, but you are not asking them to stabilize your self-worth. You can miss them without making you're missing their responsibility. That changes everything, because now they are not standing in front of someone who needs them to become more consistent in order to feel okay. They are standing in front of someone whose life still has rhythm, movement, and direction, with or without their participation. That kind of energy feels free, and freedom is one of the few things that makes a guarded person less likely to run. This kind of independence shows up in small ways, and those small ways speak loudly. You do not overread every delay. You do not build your whole emotional weather around their replies. You do not pause your life to signal devotion and hope they notice. You keep creating, working, laughing, resting, seeing people you love, and moving through your own world with real continuity. That continuity sends a message stronger than any speech ever could. It says being close to me does not mean losing yourself. It says this connection will not quietly become a role you have to manage. And over time, that softens something in them. The fear of being swallowed begins to lose its fuel because there is no evidence feeding it. They start leaning in, not because you chase them into closeness, but because they no longer feel like every step forward comes with hidden weight. This is also where your power returns, because dependence always distorts perception. It makes scraps look like promises. It makes inconsistency feel romantic, but self-contained independence lets you see clearly. You can enjoy what is real without trying to turn it into more than it is. And that clarity is magnetic, not because it is a tactic, but because it feels clean, unforced, whole. Watch what happens when someone realizes your presence is a gift, not a demand. The energy shifts, curiosity replaces resistance. And that brings us to the third quality, the one almost nobody understands correctly. The third quality is non-reactive depth. This is the ability to feel deeply without turning every feeling into immediate action, explanation, or control. Most people think depth means stronger expression. If they care more, they say more. Ask more, push more, clarify more. But for a guarded person, that escalation can feel like exposure they did not consent to. It feels like being pulled into emotional territory before they have footing. Non-reactive depth changes the entire atmosphere. You still feel a lot, but you do not make every wave into a demand for movement. You can listen without interrupting their process. You can understand without forcing a full definition. You can let a moment exist without trying to trap it inside language too quickly. That does not make you shallow, it makes you strong, because now your emotions are not running the room, you are. They begin to sense that you see beneath the surface, yet you are not trying to dissect them while they are still trying to breathe. That absence of intrusion can feel strange to them at first. They are used to being misunderstood or overanalyzed. Very few people know how to stand close enough to understand while still giving enough space for someone to unfold in their own time. And that is what non-reactive depth does. It creates intensity without invasion, care without pressure, presence without emotional grabbing. It also means you do not swing wildly with their movements. When they come closer, you do not surge forward so fast that closeness turns into a corner. When they step back, you do not collapse into visible panic, silent punishment, or a desperate need to regain control. Your inner world stays intact, not because you do not care, but because your care is not fragile. That steadiness gives them something rare, connection that does not require them to regulate your nervous system. They do not feel responsible for keeping you calm, hopeful, secure, or convinced. And when that pressure is gone, depth becomes possible in a different way, slower, safer, more honest. They can approach emotionally at a pace that does not feel like surrender. There is no urgency pushing them inward and no reaction shoving them back out, just a steady emotional space where complexity can exist without being forced into a conclusion. This is huge, because many people say they want depth, but what they actually want is immediate certainty. Non-reactive depth wants truth more than speed. It can hold tension without rushing to end it. It can hold love without trying to possess. It can hold confusion without turning the whole connection into a courtroom. Stay with this part, because now we move beneath the three visible qualities into the foundation that makes them real instead of performative. There is not some secret fourth quality hiding behind the first three like a bonus prize. What sits underneath them is deeper than another trait. It is inner security. Without inner security, calm presence becomes emotional suppression. Independence becomes cold distance. Non-reactive depth becomes withdrawal dressed up as wisdom. But with inner security, those same qualities feel natural, relaxed, and true. Inner security is the quiet knowledge that you are not at risk of losing yourself in connection. It is built when you stop measuring your worth by someone else's consistency, when their distance no longer becomes proof that you are lacking, when you stop changing your emotional shape just to keep a seat in their life. That kind of security is subtle, but a guarded person feels it almost immediately. Even if they cannot explain it, they sense the difference between someone who is restraining themselves to keep the bond alive and someone who is simply at peace in their own center. That center matters. Because when fear is not secretly driving your behavior, there is no hidden pressure building beneath your kindness. You are not giving more to earn a place. You are not holding back to seem safer. You are simply there, whole as you are, and connection with a whole person feels different. It feels less like a transaction and more like reality. It feels steady, clean, uncluttered, and that is often the very thing a guarded person does not know they have been starving for. Then comes something equally important, discernment, because not every distant person is wounded, deep, or secretly full of feeling they cannot show. Some people are simply unavailable. Some are uninterested. Some like the comfort of access without the weight of responsibility. Discernment is what protects you from confusing all of that with complexity. It is the ability to see clearly without getting dragged into fantasy. It asks the question many people avoid because it hurts. Is this connection mutual in effort, even if it is not equal in style? That question matters a lot because patience without discernment turns into self-abandonment very quickly. You start excusing what should be noticed. You start romanticizing inconsistency. You start treating crumbs like signs of hidden depth. Discernment interrupts that slide. It helps you see the difference between fear and lack of care, between someone moving slowly and someone not moving at all. It keeps your empathy from becoming a doorway through which your standards quietly leave the room. And when you have discernment, their distance becomes information, not a puzzle you must solve to prove your value. You notice patterns. You let actions count. You stop trying to become the exception to someone else's cycle. This is where many people reclaim themselves, because the goal is not to learn how to tolerate more confusion. The goal is to understand what you are actually standing in, and clarity, even painful clarity, is kinder than hope built on smoke. Another layer under all this is detachment from outcome, not indifference, not acting like you do not care how it ends. It means you can engage fully without tying your emotional stability to where the connection goes. Most people, even when they seem relaxed on the surface, are internally tracking progress. Is this moving forward? Do they like me more today? Was that message a good sign? Are we getting closer? That silent monitoring creates tension, and tension is exactly what a guarded person feels before they hear a single word. Detachment removes that pressure. You are present but not waiting. Open but not leaning toward a specific result with your whole nervous system. That changes the emotional climate completely. The connection is no longer dragging a destination behind it. It is just unfolding. And in that unfolding there is room. Room for honesty. Room for slowness. Room for things to reveal themselves without being forced. It also protects you from over-investing in potential. You stop pouring energy into what might someday happen and start responding to what is actually happening now. That keeps you grounded when their behavior shifts. You are not launched into hope when they warm up and crushed when they cool down. You remain with reality. And strangely, that lack of grasping often makes closeness feel possible again, because the air around the connection is no longer thick with expectation. Then comes self-respect. And this is where everything gets tested in real life. Self-respect is not loud. It does not need dramatic speeches, threats, or perfect boundaries posted like signs on a wall. It lives in smaller choices, what you continue to invest in, what you excuse, what you normalize over time. Around a guarded person, this matters because their inconsistency can slowly train you to lower your standards without even noticing. First, you call it patience. Then understanding, then flexibility, Then one day you realize you are accepting far less than you would have ever agreed to in the beginning. Self-respect stops that slide. It lets you make space for their fears without making yourself smaller to do it. It lets you understand their pattern without calling that pattern enough. It means when they pull away, you do not chase. But it also means when they return, you do not instantly overgive just because attention has reappeared. Your energy stays proportional, your warmth stays real, but it stays grounded in truth, not hope. This creates a quiet firmness in your presence. You are open but not available at any cost, and that lands differently because many guarded people are used to extremes, people who demand too much or people who accept too little. Self-respect makes you neither. You are kind, but not endlessly adjustable. You are patient, but not for sale. And that changes the shape of the connection whether they realize it or not. At some point, the deeper truth becomes unavoidable. Acceptance of reality. This may be the hardest part of all, because inconsistency invites imagination. A warm moment here, a vulnerable line there, one powerful night, one meaningful look, and suddenly the mind starts building a future from fragments. Acceptance pulls you back. It says, look at what is actually being shown, not what could be, not what once was, not what you hope will rise if you just love harder. That does not make you cold. It makes you clear. You stop turning patterns into promises. You stop calling distance a phase just because you need it to be temporary. You stop negotiating with reality in ways that quietly erode your dignity. This stabilizes your energy. You are no longer shocked by every withdrawal because you already understand the pattern you are dealing with. That removes emotional whiplash. You respond with awareness, not fantasy. And here is the strange beauty of it. When someone realizes you are no longer idealizing them, no longer projecting a version of them that they have not lived up to, the connection can become more honest. Maybe not bigger, maybe not deeper, but more honest, because now they are being met as they are, not as a possibility you keep polishing in your mind. And honesty, even when it hurts, is cleaner than attachment fed by illusion. Still, there is one more truth most people miss. These qualities are not designed to make someone choose you. They are designed to keep you from losing yourself while you care. That changes the whole meaning. When people first hear ideas like this, they often turn them into a secret formula. If I stay calm enough, independent enough, deep enough, maybe they will finally open. Maybe I will become the exception. But the moment this becomes a strategy to secure someone, it stops being real. Real calm does not perform. Real independence does not advertise itself. Real depth does not quietly wait for a reward. These qualities matter because they protect the truth of your presence. They allow you to love without begging, to understand without overfunctioning, to stay warm without becoming weak. And yes, sometimes a guarded person will lean closer when they feel that kind of energy. Sometimes they soften. Sometimes they stop running so hard. But that is not the point. The point is that you stop building your life around the hope of being chosen by someone emotionally conflicted. You return to yourself, and from that place, you can finally ask a healthier question. Not how do I get them to stay, but does this connection, as it is, truly honor my heart, my peace, and my future? That question is mature. That question is clean. And if you really sit with it, it changes what you accept next. In real life, this may look less dramatic than people expect. It may look like not sending the fourth message, like enjoying a good moment without turning it into a hidden contract, like hearing mixed signals and letting them be mixed instead of translating them into secret devotion. It may look like saying yes to what is genuine and no to what keeps draining you, even when the chemistry is strong. Because chemistry alone can make people tolerate confusion for far too long. Intensity can be addictive. Mystery can feel deep when it is really just inconsistency. This is why grounded people move differently. They do not need every door to open. They do not force locked rooms. They do not build meaning from absence. They watch, they feel, they choose carefully. And when something is mutual, their calm does not block intimacy. It strengthens it. Their independence does not create distance. It creates ease. Their non-reactive depth does not make things vague. It makes honesty safer. So if you are listening to this and thinking, I have spent too much time trying to become easier to love for someone who was never really available, then let this be the turning point. Not a bitter one, a clear one. You do not have to harden. You do not have to stop caring. You just have to stop offering your emotional center as payment for a connection that keeps asking you to wait in uncertainty. And if a guarded person ever does move toward you in a real way, these same qualities will still matter, not as bait, but as the structure that keeps love from becoming fear. Calm presence will help both of you breathe when old patterns wake up. Self-contained independence will keep closeness from becoming possession. Non-reactive depth will make room for truth without turning every vulnerable moment into a crisis. Inner security will stop love from becoming survival. Discernment will keep you honest. Detachment from outcome will help you stay present instead of controlling the future. Self-respect will protect your standards. Acceptance of reality will keep fantasy from rewriting the facts. This is what gives a connection a chance to become something solid, not perfection, not constant harmony, something more real than that, something that can hold tenderness and tension at the same time without falling apart. And if that never happens with this person, the lesson is still not wasted, because you have built a way of being that will serve every healthy relationship you ever enter. That is the deeper win, not becoming unforgettable to someone unavailable, but becoming unshakable within yourself. And once that happens, your whole energy changes. You stop asking to be chosen by confusion. You start choosing what is steady, mutual, and clean. And that shift, more than anything, is what finally sets you free. So, if you take anything from this, let it be this. The rarest thing you can bring into a difficult connection is not more effort. It is a nervous system that does not beg, a heart that stays open without abandoning itself, and a mind clear enough to see what is there without painting over the cracks. That kind of presence is rare because it cannot be borrowed from advice. It has to be built, quietly, through choices, through loss, through moments where you wanted to chase, explain, prove, rescue, and instead return to your center. That is real growth, and once you live from that place, something changes forever. You no longer fear distance the same way, because you are no longer using another person to define your worth. You no longer confuse silence with your failure. You no longer call emotional unavailability a challenge you must solve to feel chosen. You simply see more clearly, love more cleanly, leave earlier when needed, stay only where truth can breathe. That is not giving up. That is becoming someone whose care is deep, strong, and undistorted. Someone who can offer warmth without pressure, closeness without control, and understanding without self-erasure. And in a world full of people performing love while secretly bargaining for safety, that kind of person stands out instantly, not because they are loud, because they are real.